Welcome to the NexGen CMO podcast, where we sit down with seasoned CMOs and emerging talents in sales and marketing to explore the wins and occasional losses that shape today's leaders and the strategic maneuvers that can help propel you to the forefront of B2B marketing.
Welcome to the NexGen CMO podcast. I am your host, Kelly Hoppy. I am the CMO at Demandbase, and I'm super excited to have my partner in crime, John Eitel, here today. He is our Chief Sales Officer, and he is our guest because for so many reasons, but today is our very first podcast. So we wanted to bring him on as a special treat to kick off this podcast. Hey, John.
Hey, Kelly. Thanks for having me on and letting me be a part of this momentous occasion.
Yeah, of course. I think you're going to be a frequent guest, so get ready. We'll have you back on a regular cadence. Today is our first one, so we'll take a minute to tell you what we're about. So this is called NexGen CMOs, and the idea is that we are talking to either future CMOs who want ideas on how to get there or what's going on in that space that they can aspire to or learn from, or any of those. Also, existing CMOs who maybe want to mentor their future leaders and think about the things that are relevant to the next generation of CMOs. Or a little play on words. I actually like the idea that this could be for CMOs who are really on the cutting edge of next-gen marketing. So these sort of forward-thinking thought leaders in the world of marketing. So a lot of things around AI and what's going on in that space. So we'll talk about that stuff too. So I'm super excited to be here. John, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, just so that folks can learn who you are?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. No, I'm excited to be a part of this, and I think the topic's going to be a fun one to carry throughout all the different episodes here. Obviously, there's so much disruption going on in the world. So much change is happening. And so, hopefully we can be a source of help and a resource to others. But yeah, as Kelly mentioned, my name's John Eitel. I am the Chief Sales Officer here at Demandbase. And I've been in the kind of SaaS cloud world for 20 plus years, kind of helping build hypergrowth sales motions with companies like Rackspace, WP Engine, Canva, to name a few. And now I'm super happy to be partnered with Kelly here working at Demandbase, helping high performing teams go to market more effectively.
Very cool. And fun story. The reason, lots of reasons, because I think Demandbase is a fantastic company and product. But the reason I'm here at Demandbase is because of John. He came and found me and introduced me to the team as they were looking for a new chief marketing officer. And we just clicked, and we set up a 30-minute coffee that lasted a couple hours and realized we could do this. This could be a great partnership. And so I'm super excited. Demandbase is all about bringing sales and marketing folks together, driving alignment across the way we go to market, the way we drive revenue, the way that we measure the accounts that we go after. And so it means that from our perspective, we want to make sure that John and I and our teams are exemplifying what we are promising our customers around the value of alignment. So lots of stuff to go into there.
Totally. Yeah, super cool story. I was going to say, you don't often get the chance to pick your peer or partner in crime, but I think, it was really great. I think it was fun to come into this together. We spent, as you mentioned, a couple hours over coffee, talking about how we think about building, scaling, growing teams, things we're passionate about outside of work. And it was an immediate fit. So, I think it really does, set this stage for us to do some really cool work together.
Yeah, but don't, just for folks to know, alignment doesn't come easy when you compete with your partner on everything outside of work. So John and I are rivals. Our kids go to rival high schools. We went to rival universities. We live in sort of rivaling suburbs in the city of Austin. And so it's fun then when we get to work to be on the other side of that and be on the same team instead of opposite teams.
Yeah, plenty of reasons for us to not get along. Thankfully, it happens to work, and our differences is our strength here. And so, yeah, good call out, and great to let people know that. I think actually you and I talked a bit about this over coffee too. I think that's one of the neat thing is that when probably you or I are both at our best, it's when we have this strong partnership. We're aligned, we're pushing each other, we're challenging each other. I think that's always my call out. It doesn't mean that I always get what I want. It doesn't mean you always get what you want, right? But I think if we're all coming at this with the same, I would say goals in mind, and we're really coming at it with the right interests in mind, I think we get the most out of each other, and that's what's really great.
Yeah. Yeah. John and I are both coming off of our revenue kickoff that was last week. It was the first one in 4 years, and our first face-to-face one, just given the timing of COVID and all the things. And so I can't come off of the high of it because it was it was so necessary. I feel like I don't even know what the thing cost, but it was worth every single penny because the amount of collaboration, alignment, relationship building, empathy, and trust that comes from meeting people face to face, even a 5-minute conversation. I told my teams ahead of time, I'm like, spend as much intentional time talking to folks as you can, especially like sellers and customer success folks and everybody there because then when challenges come up in the business, you will approach it from a different place of intention and positivity if you know this human in real life outside of a one-dimensional computer screen.
Yeah, no, I'm actually, ecstatic about how it changed the shape of the organization. How it's really kind of helping us come out of this a stronger team. And I agree completely. I'm on fumes a little bit. We're coming off of it as of a couple of days ago. So still trying to recharge the battery because we had 300 people in person, face to face. That's a lot of always on time. But it was really neat to see. It's hard to pick a favorite moment, but I would say the connections that were made were some of my favorite points there. I think I told you I snuck out of one of the, first night's kind of events early, just so I could get home and work on some slides. And I snuck down to the hotel restaurant to get a bite. And, I found 4 teammates from 4 different teams sitting there together. And so it was just really great to see that they had kind of found each other and they were, sitting at a table, kind of solving problems. And it was great to see just those things happening, just organically on their own, because they found each other and they had the time and they were able to sit down together. So hopefully this really does carry us, throughout the year and sets the foundation for us.
Yeah. It sounds like a much better use of time than working on slides anyway. So I'm glad you got to have a meal together, which was good. So I saw this stat recently that says, it came out from like webinarcare.com, just about a sales enablement study, but it says sales teams, I'd love your opinion on this. Sales teams who work closely with marketing see a 41% greater growth in reaching their quotas. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I do. And I mean, I think that's, you and I talk a bit about this regularly. So, and I think also you and I both have a ton of experience working in, good relationships, higher functioning relationships, probably even less functioning relationships. And I think everybody's probably felt, a bit of the strain when we all went distributed, when we weren't probably all coming into the office or maybe even in the same regions and time zones. And so it really has, taxed that. And so I do think that, it has really brought that home. It really has shown that, I do believe it. I think that teams that communicate, work together, make those handoffs and collaborate are going to be the ones that win here. But not only do I believe that number, I felt it probably a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. And it helps us too, like as coming from the marketing perspective, when you guys are invested in what we're putting together, what we're delivering, and we're putting together content that's relevant to you and what you can use, and not just sort of a data dump of content and product information and all that for you to decipher, but actually real relevant sort of clean bill of materials on what you can use. I think it helps us make sure we're giving you what's relevant and to make sure that we are targeting the accounts that you feel like you can close. And hopefully that bidirectional partnership really makes a difference.
Yep.
So cool. So we're not the only ones talking about sales and marketing alignment. Big news this week. I guess by the time this gets aired, it'll be about 3 weeks old, but I think it may be the kickoff of a long trend. But Salesloft and Drift merged as one company, both in the AI space, both in the rev tech space. Your team is a user and consumer, and we're a partner of both of these companies. What are your thoughts about this merger?
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting. And as you mentioned, I've used both companies in my past lives. We're partnered with both here at Demandbase. And so it is really, neat to see the two joining forces and coming together. I think it's actually a signal of, something even bigger to come too. I think that, on the surface, if you think about it, it is the merging of, sales tech and MarTech. We're starting to bring tools together. And, last year we saw a lot of, sales tech companies acquiring more sales tech companies to complete their portfolio and build out their product suite. And I think we'll continue to see that. But this is actually kind of reaching across the aisle to connect the two. And I think that's a really powerful thing. And, I think as we think about themes, trends, what to expect in the new year, I think this is going to be the year of, a lot of people joining forces, teams coming together, products working more, cohesively. So I think it's big news in a lot of ways. And so I think it's, really great to see for those two teams to be aligned here. I'm kind of, excited to see what the future holds and what some of the next steps are, coming together. As I was kind of going through my LinkedIn feed last night and looking about what my peers are talking about, everybody was buzzing about this one, for a lot of different reasons, and there was even conversation around, Vista, the mastermind that's kind of executing this strategy. They were the one that's, bought Marketo and then sold Marketo to Adobe. And that's, hailed as the deal of the century. And so maybe this is what the next deal of the century is going to look like. It's going to be one of these roll-ups. If you look at their portfolio of companies, they have, others in there like Gainsight. And so you start to think about, is it just bringing sales and marketing tool set together, which I think is so brilliant. But do we want to align even more of the customer journey, and be able to bring together, CX tech into this as well? So lots of big implications. Again, hopefully the start of, the cycle here. We're already only a month into the new year. And I think this is going to be probably a constant theme we see throughout the year. So if I'm making a prediction, I think we'll see more. But excited to see what this, means, for those two companies as well as their users and customers here.
Yeah, I agree. I think about it from the perspective of, I won't say budget, but I know that every year when I go into budget season, especially when I have kind of marketing ops or rev ops underneath my purview, I feel like immediately CFOs are looking at my budget and saying, there's so many tools. Like, do you need all of these tools? Like, why are you spending money on Clary and SalesLoft and Drift and Outreach and Marketo and Salesforce and Demandbase and all these different tools that we're spending money on? And so I think that also becomes an inhibitor, because what ends up happening is two things. One, you're having to justify why you need all these tools, or sacrificing some of them if you get squeezed. Or two, then you're having to build the integration of all of these tools on your end with your data and with each other, with the other tools. And so to think about, the more these merge on the outside, not only does it protect some of these companies and give them a broader purview and a broader TAM that they can go after, they're also sort of hopefully solving the integration on their side, so that when we get it, it's a much more sort of plug and play solution for us as marketers, sellers, and rev ops, as being able to plug it into our systems, because they've already kind of worked out the integration kinks on the background. So I think that's another benefit to some of these companies coming together.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you're hitting the nail right on the head. I think last year, we saw a bit of this, as I mentioned, with some of the sales tech companies. Clary bought Groove. Many probably know this already, or seen this, as they use these tools here. But, Gong, Clary, SalesLoft, Outreach, they're all kind of in kind of a race to become each other and kind of fill out each other's tool sets to be able to be more comprehensive and complete there. And so you're right. I think it, will in the end yield hopefully a better user experience. It will yield maybe some, cost efficiencies that people get to take advantage of. And so I look forward to that. I think we working at a tool company, have a lot of tools at our disposal because of our partnerships and friendships we've formed here. And so we use a lot of those companies that I just mentioned. And, right now, from my point of view, I still want to use the best in class for each of them, but I do think that there could be a point where when all these products get to parity, that could be a very compelling decision. And I do think, one thing that's always in my mind is tool exhaustion for sellers. There's so many, advantages and powers to giving them tools, but if you give them too many, they tend to hit kind of a saturation point here. And so I think being able to say that you only have one UI that you're logging into, or one tool set that allows you to access all these components and pieces, it's going to be really powerful, and it'll be really helpful for the sales mindset.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be helpful. I think in this economy, I don't know, maybe when this airs in 3 weeks, the economy will be solved. But as of today, we are still somewhat in a recession.
Some optimistic thinking, Hopping.
You got to believe it's coming back.
Yeah.
But when I think about the economy, And I sort of even charter it back to when Silicon Valley Bank went under about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years now. That situation, is that how long ago? Was it a year and a half?
Year and a half? Yeah, as I say, you're not too far off.
Am I losing years? Like COVID brain, I like lost 4 years of my life. But when they went under, I feel like valuations really dried up, right? Now, it had been sort of exacerbated kind of 2020, 2021, sort of these stupid valuations of companies at 20, 25x multiples, which made no sense. They started to sort of come back to normal levels with this. And the effect of that was that this sort of growth at all costs got replaced by cash flow positive, profitability, all those things in companies. And so what it did was it sort of, I think, shined a spotlight and exposed some of these companies that were getting by with just buying every bit of growth and having to be like, oh, wait, we need to have a sort of sustainable, high value business that can, that's why SaaS is so valuable in itself, is because it continues to sustain itself with recurring revenue. So anyway, so you go through all that and then you think, man, these companies that looked really great are now not looking so great for IPO or any of those. And so they become prime targets for these acquisitions. John and I had a buddy who works with us yesterday say that, and we think we're going to see more of these trends. He says they huddle together to stay warm, which I thought was a great statement, basically saying these companies come together because together there's more efficiencies to be found. It's why private equity exists in the first place, is to find these efficiencies in the business. By bringing them together, hopefully you get there. So pretty interesting times all around, and it'll be fun to watch the news continue to pile in over the next year to see where this moves.
Yeah, no, I agree. One, you're not wrong to try and just like munge the last 2-3 years together. I think I do that as well. I think that's, you, myself, and our CEO had a conversation over dinner a couple months back of like, which was worse, 22 or 23. And I think we came to at least a resolution that they were both equally bad in different ways, right? And, presented some unique challenges. But you're right. I think out of the challenges, I think are some good things that are coming. I do think that, this return to responsible growth, I think, is a really great thing. It is going to force some companies that were living, kind of ahead of their means here, or getting out in front of their skis to try and have to figure this out while, funding isn't highly available here. And so the huddle together to stay warm, philosophy should continue throughout the year.
Yeah, I actually think 23 was worse than 22. And I'll tell you why. I think 22 was, to me, and I don't have any official stats for this, but based on my experience in leadership during that time, was the most expensive hiring year on record. We were coming off 2021, so the market felt red hot. And then you have these like college grads with 15 minutes of work experience saying, like, demanding $200,000 a year in compensation. And you're like, you have to pay it because everybody's demanding it. And then, here a year later, I was just meeting with our recruiter yesterday to say, have these things gone back to normal? Like, are we getting back to where we're paying based on experience and, years of tenure and all those kind of things that kind of come with life, versus kind of that like mismatched, compensation to skill set. And so I think what happened in 23 was we had to live with those hiring decisions from 22 that were so inflated. In 23, we come in and we're like, man, the market just dropped out. We're losing, and we've got a very, very, very expensive workforce. And so I think it exacerbated the layoffs and kind of what happened across the industry in general, but specifically in tech, specifically in marketing and sales, I think, because of the pressures there. And so it ended up being, I think it looked like deeper cuts of layoffs because talent was so expensive. So there's a lot of like macroeconomic things that are affecting all of our businesses outside of individual business decisions. So I just think it's fascinating.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that the things got out of alignment, and I saw it even in my, kind of microcosm of kind of advising and talking to kind of young sales professionals. But I heard it just time and time again where people were getting offers, of 100,000 more than they were making at other companies. And I remember at the time just thinking like, what's going on with this trend? Something seems amiss or out of place. And, sales, rep performance payback models are pretty tried and true and well understood. And so I was like, there's there's not some new math that just came out in 22 that allowed people to pay people 100,000 more. And it was this big aha moment of like, because everybody can't get their hands on talent, we're dipping into profitability to be able to afford the talent because everybody wants to get their hands on, the hottest sellers and marketers and talent available in the time that they're hiring there. And so it did create that massive misalignment, which 23 was a lot of the, like, how do we right size and, take all that into account. I do feel like 22 also just, from my own perspective, I feel like that's where we were preparing for a lot of this stuff, but it didn't really fully hit. I think 23 is where we really felt it hit, is my sense. And so, it's been a long 2 years, and I hope that your optimism is spot on. I feel like we are starting to see some great indicators that things are stabilizing and steadying, and so I think that's gives me hope for this year here, and hopefully that means that we come out of it with some great learnings, some new takeaways, things to put in place so that we don't fall back into that cycle again.
Yeah, I agree. I do think we're on the back end, the backside of this whole thing. I read something back in like 22, 23, like macroeconomic, that kind of said like early 25 is when we would be fully out of it, and 25 to 30 would be these like boom years. So fingers crossed that happens. And I think the recent news from Facebook, was that this Meta, about their sort of like record breaking ad growth in the many, many billions of dollars, I think is a good sign that we're moving in the right direction. So.
Yeah. So great to see that too. I think like ad revenue is an interesting, kind of litmus test for how things are trending and going. And we see, we have a big part of our business that is ads. And so it was interesting to see when the pandemic was happening and you couldn't do in-person events. A lot of people shifted that events budget to ads, and then I think also during 22, 23, when events came back, we saw this resurgence of face-to-face, right? So there was, again, this like reallocation of money from one to the other, and so I think this is, again, we're kind of getting back to equilibrium, hopefully, but there's been a lot of like sway from one side of the boat to the other, throughout the last 2 years.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be an interesting ride the next 12 to 24 months, I think. Well, to lighten things up a little bit, that was like a little masterclass in microeconomics. Super Bowl. We just came off. Now, again, we'll be 3 weeks after by the time you guys hear this, but super relevant to us right now because, two things are hot in the news right now. One is today is Valentine's Day. So a little late adding that. Happy Valentine's Day. This is a good chance for marketing and sales to share their love for each other. So great time to have you on the show for that. The other thing is Super Bowl. So Super Bowl was a couple days ago. What'd you think of this Super Bowl? Everything from commercials, halftime show, Taylor effect. Is Patrick Mahomes the GOAT or not? Are they a dynasty? What do you think?
Yeah, so much. I think we could go a lot of different ways on this, and I think you and I also share a love of sports and bring our business brains probably to the sporting events. You just can't turn it off, unfortunately. But so many great things about this year. I think like viewership, obviously through the roof, ticket prices the highest they've ever been. And so it was really great to see it. You have the Taylor effect, which obviously stirred up some controversy here, but I thought it was amazing. And it was great to see. My wife, always watches it with me every year. Actually said this is the first time that she actually cared about the game and the outcome. So maybe there's some, bringing of a broader audience, obviously, to this, which is, I think, a very, very positive thing. So I thought it was amazing to see. And I think actually one of my personal passions is leadership. I do love watching leadership in action there. I mean, there was many moments of it. I think the dynasty commentary, I thought was really interesting. I thought Mahomes did a great job in that last, interview that he did right at the end of the game, when caught and put on the spot and asked if this is a dynasty, he didn't back down, but he didn't also, let his head get too big, and I think his framing of it's the beginnings of a dynasty was like the perfect way to set the tone here. And so, I think there is always that risk of once you call yourself a GOAT or you register yourself as a dynasty, there begins the end. And so I think he did a good job of really kind of, owning their greatness, but also setting an expectation that they're not going away anytime soon. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I was pulling for the Niners. I'm not going to lie. I'm a big Christian McCaffrey fan. I also, speaking of Patrick Mahomes not getting a big head, his helmet drives me crazy. He uses I think he used one of those Vices helmets that it's up like 6 inches above his head.
It's up 9. Yeah.
Oh, it's awful. I can't even look at it. But I do love Christian McCaffrey. And so I was, and since we had just come home from San Francisco with our revenue kickoff, I was kind of high on the Niners too. I mean, let's be honest, I'm a Saturday football fan, but when Saturday football ends in early January, I will do postseason NFL, but I prefer college. But I did enjoy it. I think the Niners' biggest mistake was not creating a bigger gap earlier in the game, not running Christian McCaffrey enough after the first quarter. And I think as a result, like, you put the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands in a close game in the last 5 minutes, like, you're going to probably lose. And I think that's they'd have to run up that score ahead of time to create a big enough gap for the Chiefs not to come back. So that was a tough one for them, but a great game nonetheless, which is really always the goal. To take it into overtime for a Super Bowl means every advertiser got every cent of the value. I read on The Hustle. So John and I are both big fans of The Hustle as kind of our daily news, the merging of business and tech and kind of what's happening in the space. And what The Hustle said was that 1 minute of airtime costs $14 million for advertisers. If you go back and watch some of the great ads, like, one of my favorites was the Jason Momoa one with the Scrubs guys, and the Flashdance kind of throwback and all that, which is fantastic. But they used the full minute. That means that 1 minute of airtime was $14 million. Not to mention probably what they had to pay Jason Momoa or Don Faison or any of those guys. So it's very expensive. But the halftime show, 12 minutes long, is free. I mean, they probably actually get paid for it, but the publicity is essentially free. Last year, Rihanna was at halftime, and it said that the media value for Fenty, which is her brand, so she was not even talking about Fenty out there, she's just dancing, but the media value for Fenty that she is associated with earned $5.6 million that day. So huge value add for the halftime show. So lots of opportunity. It's the largest advertising stage in the world. We think about how it could possibly impact B2B versus B2C. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, so much there. And I would say, like, before I jump into that too, like, I had to acknowledge, like, that was, the Jason Momoa one was pretty amazing. I think I liked the Michael Sarah V one. That one just, like, really blew my mind. And it is it's oftentimes surprising to think, like, who's going to get a new spotlight in here. Who's been there all along? Like, actually, one of the ones that really surprised me too was E-Trade. Like, I think E-Trade since the .com era has been advertising and going strong. Like, I haven't tech tested this with the internet, but I would say, like, it feels like almost every single year they're back, which is great. So obviously they're seeing this return on the investment there. So I think that was really kind of neat to see. And I do think it's a good economic study to layer in here and think about, like, how does it kind of, parlay to us. Obviously, all these brands that are on there are capturing eyeballs and consumer spend here. And, there's no bigger audience, no bigger draw than the Super Bowl here. But I think, like, when you take it back to our world here, like B2B, like, where are those eyeballs? Where can you attract them? How can you get the best bang for your buck and capitalize on those moments, right? I think that's the other thing that's really neat is that it's getting harder and harder to capture attention and eyeballs. As a consumer or as a B2B brand, right? And so being able to find those right spots, those right moments, and make sure that you stand out in the noise there is the important thing there. Make sure that you're one of the ones that everybody's talking about come Monday, versus the ones that, often get forgotten there. I think actually Budweiser was the other one that is, I think, I've been there every single year, and they nailed it again too. Always, hitting the right note there. But yeah, it's a fun one to watch. I know a lot of folks watch the Super Bowl not even caring about the game. A lot of my marketing and ads friends purely tune in just to see, that, because that's the big game for their industry, right? And so, it is kind of fun that we can all align on that.
Yeah. It's I think the ads are a blast, and I think the other, I heard all these Taylor Swift games for sightings and things that were affecting Super Bowl parties, so that's fun too. But I think it didn't attract the commercials, and the Taylor Swift component certainly attract a different audience and a different engagement in the game, which I think is a lot of fun. And yeah, I think, and what Budweiser did, which I thought was interesting, was kind of bring back these Clydesdales. And I remember about a year ago, they introduced kind of a controversial set of topics, and it received major backlash amongst their core audience. And so I think they went back to tried and true roots, which I think is cool. Fun fact about totally unrelated to sales and marketing alignment or anything related to NexGen.
I think that counts. We can do it. It's your show, right? Yeah. You know, it's your first one here.
When I was in grad school, somebody gave me tickets to see Usher, free tickets. And they said, hey, Usher's in concert tonight. His keyboardist gave us free tickets because I went to grad school with him. So I'm like, okay, random, but I'll go. I love Usher. The man can move. His dancing is, amazing. So it was so fun to watch that. But anyways, so I go to this concert and Usher was the headliner. But so I got there in time to see his opening act. His first opening act was the keyboardist who gave us the free tickets. His name was John Legend. No one had heard of him. He was just a guy who played the keyboard. And so that was fun. I was like, oh, he went to Penn. He went to Penn undergrad. And so impressive, super smart guy. No one had heard of him. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And then the next opening act, which only had one big song, and it was a song called Jesus Walks or Jesus Talks. I don't remember which one. But anyways, it was Kanye West. And so Kanye's out there in like a polo and jeans. Now he's like got all the crazy over the top, Gucci and whatever, everything. But at the time, it was just a polo guy. And no one had heard of Kanye West. Like I said, he had one big song. And then Usher was the headliner. And I look back now, that was, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And obviously those other two have made big names for themselves. So fun. And then Usher to come back on stage. My kids thought Usher was like 30 years old when they saw him dancing. I was like, he's my age. Like he's not even close to 30. Like he is my age. He just can dance. So I thought that was a fun halftime show. That's been the formula, was what can appeal to my parents and my kids in 12 minutes. And I think Usher was a great bridge.
I agree. As I say, actually, what an amazing show to get free tickets to, by the way, too. Getting to see, a young Kanye before his breakout and John Legend, too. And I think actually at the party I was at, we all did the same thing. We pulled out our phones to Google how old is Usher. And we're quickly reminded that he's just probably aged a little bit better than us. But yeah, it was really good to see. And I thought they brought the energy. Alicia Keys was amazing, too. I can't forget that. So that was a really cool part there.
Yeah, that piano was so cool. That red, whatever. Anyway, pretty amazing. Well, I don't know if we've covered a lot of ground today. Anything else that we didn't touch on that we should?
No, I think it's been a good one. I can't wait to see the rest of the series. Congrats on kicking this off, and excited to see where you're taking it. Thanks for sharing the stage with me on your first one here, and good luck with the rest of this year.
Absolutely. Yeah. You'll be on as a regular check-in as we move through this year and we see the trends of 2024 and we see how we continue to solve challenges together and figure out how do we align around the same shared KPIs, make sure we're all driving to revenue, we're all driving to pipe, regardless of source. I think that's the future and that's where we're moving. So I'm super excited about that.
One team, one dream. Yeah, no, I think that sounds great.
That's going to be my new tagline. I like that. One team, one dream. You just wrote the podcast tagline. There we go. So, John, for any sellers that we have listening to this, or sales leaders, or future CSOs, what do you hope that they can get out of this podcast?
Yeah, I think actually the best outcome I could see, for the sales mind and persona here, is access to hearing what marketing leaders are thinking about. Being able to also bring in, their own unique perspective. There's so much change and transition going on in both of our worlds. And you and I talk a lot about this, Kelly, like what does it look like in a combined format? How do we adapt to this new ever-changing world together? What tips, tools, tactics, techniques can you take out of this and, hopefully learn from the best and put into practice?
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. Thank you all for listening today. We look forward to more episodes to come. So please subscribe and share with your friends. Talk soon. Bye.